I'll just make notice that, please note that in accordance with Mass General Law 30A, chair is required to, whether anyone is taping this meeting, please make themselves known. And hearing none, because I'll call the meeting to order. Do we need to do I guess, Chuck, would you mind doing a roll call? It's just.
It's going to be easy, Jim. Jim,
Yes,
are you
Here.
here? I'm here, so we have enough bodies to have the meetings.
Right. And Mark, just while we talk about quorum for a second, with the three, we selected three subcommittee members, so 2 would constitute a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And so for any email exchanges cannot be replied to. I mean,
Yeah, I would avoid, any conversations through email, just to create that impression, because it can create that impression of deliberations occurring outside of an open meeting. So
okay.
You could certainly email file back and forth to to a committee member, but I wouldn't comment on it until we have a public meeting.
Okay. So for tonight, then, Chuck and I got started with our first drafts on the DPW, and I took a cut at DWMP, and then at this afternoon I saw that Jeremy had submitted his work on school committee. I did open it up a little bit and take a quick look at it, but maybe a little. He may have to explain himself a little bit more, but we're welcome to take a look at that as well tonight. And just from a scheduling perspective, this is the 18th. We have this meeting. And then I think, Mark, at the end of this week, or from our previous meeting, we're expecting like a final draft on the town manager's submissions. Do you think you'll get that this week, or would that be next week?
Yeah, I think I sent that to everybody yesterday. It was in a PDF format file.
Okay, I did see that. That was
so that everything that's highlighted in yellow on that spreadsheet are the projects that are being recommended for funding coming forward in FY26. Obviously, the entire CIP book document is under construction. That's not ready, but I wanted to get you the list of projects that are being recommended for funding right away.
And I did get that. I just didn't get a chance to work with it, so I stayed with. So my numbers, as well as Chuck's as well, will have to be updated after this evening's meeting. So, if we're ready, can I share my screen?
Hang on a second. Let me. Okay. Yep, you should be able to now.
Can you see this? I'm assuming.
Not yet.
Not yet. No.
Hold on.
There we go.
There we go. Yep.
Can you make it full screen?
I will try. Yep.
Or just, make it full on your screen?
Better?
Yep, that's better.
So, I don't know if anybody else got hit at about 8 o'clock last night on a power outage, but I was halfway through all this, Chuck, updating it, and my power went out. But so I did not get. I contend to will go through the yellow. So Mark and Betty, Chuck had gone through this is the 2024 format that we elected to use this year, and providing the following annotations to it. So I'm just going to begin scrolling down. I'll fill this in here. I took Hector's name off. He's not a member of our subcommittee, unless Mark Milne, do you think we should put it in anyways?
Yeah, you may just want to add him as, the chair of CFAC.
I just didn't want to, just did not want to include it being confused with quorums, that's all.
Yeah, I think it's up to you guys. Maybe talk to Hector about that.
Okay. And Chuck, if you want to go through these, I'm assuming all the ones in yellow are all numbers that needed to be updated.
Yeah, these I think the ones in yellows are actually the 24 numbers, and rather than going through and replacing them with numbers I didn't think would be finalized, I just wanted to highlight the ones that.
Okay.
So I don't see a need to go through the ones in yellow,
Gotcha.
other than us talking about content. I think the content is fine, and I have some questions that I put in red later on in the document, but for now it's just a flag to make sure we get these updated.
Okay, so let's go through your red comments. So the first one was on the table. It's not a, it's a, are you saying I didn't see a picture in that old document, but is that what you were referring to?
Yeah, in the document that I have that's editable, this table is an inserted picture. It's not inserted as a table. So I can't edit it. It's
Okay.
uneditable. And so
I can do that. I can take care of that then.
But more, maybe more important for task Mark here. I guess I'm wondering about the purpose of this table. I look at it, and when it was done in 24, it was done to show you what the numbers would look like over the 5 fiscal years included in the 24 report. And then it seems like every year we just move one more year. But I'm wondering why history wouldn't be of interest to people on the town council. I mean, I understand why we're showing the 5-year numbers, but why wouldn't we show, 20 and 21 and 22 and 23 just to give perspective, even if it's not part of the FY26 plan? So, and there may be a really good reason. I'm just wondering why.
It's totally up to the committee. If you're asking me that question, Chuck,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So it's totally up to the committee. It's certainly, if you think it's worth adding in, like, a 5-year picture of what the capital submissions have been over a 5-year period. Certainly that may reveal a trend, let's say. You may see that the 5-year total amount for the general fund, the enterprise funds, is increasing, perhaps suggesting that, we're falling behind or we're getting more aggressive in the way we're addressing our capital program.
Okay, so if you don't think it would be a waste of time, then I'll put my hand up and say, when I get the editable version, I'll plug in the numbers. I just think it would be interesting to see, to get some takeaways on both trends in the enterprise and general fund, and also to see what the trend line for the CWMP is. Obviously, because I think it's going to dominate things. And so if you don't think it's a bad idea, then I'll do that, and I'll populate it through 30, but add in some back years as well, just for perspective. We can change the title later.
Chuck,
Yeah.
When did CWMP start to really take hold, Mark? Rather than are you like suggesting going back to 2020, Chuck, or?
I'm suggesting going back to whenever the CWMP became a fiscal year placeholder.
Yeah, I'll go back and I'll check that. I think it may have been about 5 years ago that we started including a separate section for CWMP.
Chuck, I think that would be incredibly valuable from the town council perspective. And you've hit the nail on the head, which is the CWMP. I think if you trace that back, I would find that absolutely hugely valuable. So I love the idea.
Okay.
Yeah, and if we include that, that 5-year look, Chuck, the committee should include some narrative to go along with that, where you're drawing conclusions. Just putting it in there without drawing any conclusions or providing some narrative to go along with it doesn't really give the reader any idea of what we're trying to tell as a story.
Fair. I will, I'll put my hand up for that too.
Okay.
And do you think, will we have to change the format, Chuck, on that to make it more of a graph? Or do you think a table such as this would be adequate?
Um,
I'm not good at graphs, so I'm bringing that up just to make
Yes.
sure that
um,
I could figure it out, but it's not my forte.
I'm personally, I'm not just because I'm afraid of graphics, which I am, but just for visual purposes, I'm perfectly fine with the table.
Okay.
I also have a fear that in some of our past reports, if we have too many line items, the visual of a graph, even though it's easier to see trend lines, gets kind of busy,
Gotcha.
especially when we have to shrink it to fit an 8.5 by 11 construct. So I'm happy to leave it the way it is unless people feel strongly the other way.
No. I think the more user or committee member friendly we can make these things, the better off we are, right? That way, and well, you don't need a subset of a certain skills to be able to compile our report.
I agree. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I will do
We all
that.
set with that paragraph then? Are you
I am. Yep.
okay?
Sorry, I'm just toggling back and forth between documents here.
Okay. So then you had some other questions on formatting, which I think are good ones. My preferences, I tend to like shorter, whether it's FY26. Once we state what it is, what the short, so maybe the first one might be FY 2026, and then in parens, FY26, and the same with million. I prefer capital M, but any one, whether it's millions, double M, single M.
Jim, in a slightly politically incorrect vein, the amount of time we've spent in the last few years arguing about this stuff is mind-boggling. So I am happy to do whatever you like to do.
Okay.
We should just agree on it and do it and not have
Okay.
endless debates about it. So
then I've spoken what I'd like to do, which is
let's do it.
FY26 and capital M.
Done.
Once the first one is explained in a paragraph, then we go from there.
Perfect. Thank you.
So this one here, I didn't quite understand it. I think it's probably pretty explainable, but would you want to share with us what the DPW and school?
Yeah. My question for Mark and for our and for Betty, for our liaison, is in the past we have talked about general funds, enterprise funds, and then CWMP, and it's the way the report's been set up. In my brain, what I think about is DPW, schools, and CWMP. So I'm thinking more of a functional department format than a funds-driven format. It really doesn't matter. I guess I really just wanted to ask Mark. I assume there's a reason in the past the structure was general funds, blah blah blah, enterprise fund, blah blah blah, and then we decided to split CWMP out because of the magnitude. And if Mark says yes, there's a reason, it's the way we look at this stuff, then my question is answered and we're done. I'm perfectly fine leaving it the way it is. It's not the way we handed out committee assignments, and so it just struck me that I'd ask the question.
Yeah, so I think what the committee has done in the past is just tried to follow, a similar structural format that we produced our overall capital document, and that is, we ask everybody to submit their capital request by department. But certainly you can take those submissions and you can categorize them in different ways, right? So you could take your submissions that are sewer expansion related, other infrastructure, roads, sidewalks, bridges, facilities, including municipal and schools, and have a category for facilities, water side improvements, docks, piers, bulkheads, however you wanted to, categorize things. Certainly up to you guys as to how you wanted to do that. But I think in the past, what you've done is you just followed the kind of groupings that we had presented in the overall CIP document.
Well, that then for me is awesome. Perfect. Let's just keep it that way. Then my only comment is, I think in the past, we've been light on we spent a lot of time on enterprise fund projects, and general fund, we were pretty light on. So, when we get down to the lower part, where we have actual comments, I think I'm just suggesting maybe we beef up the general fund section to have a little more detail on some of the specific submissions that were made. And again, we can leave it to the later discussion. But I'm fine with the format the way it is.
Okay. So okay. And again, these are just paragraphs and numbers that will be updated.
Right.
Same
Yeah,
here as we move on.
Yeah, basically everything that's in yellow in this big section, you, Jeremy, and I have been rewriting. So it's just a note that what we write will take the place of what's in here.
So Chuck, I have an observation right here on this page. Is this similar to what you were suggesting just a few minutes ago about showing a multiple year comparison of submissions? Because that's what this does. It takes, the 5-year period from 25 to 29 versus the 5-year period from 26 to 30. And, do you want, is that what you're thinking as far as showing a comparison purposes over a multiple year period? Maybe, add 24 to 28, 23 to 27 and so forth.
That would be, so that's interesting. That would be another way to do it. My thought in the upper chart was just to do year by year so that town council could look and see year by year. The rolled up version could disguise things. It would make it harder to find, year by year trends. It would just be rolled up trends, but excuse me. I got to think about that, Mark. That's a good point.
Basically the same thing.
The data would roll up identically. If we gave people the 5-year numbers, let's say CWMP started as a line item in 2021. Then if we gave them 21 through 30, so we had 10 years worth of data, if you did the math, it'd roll up to the same thing that you're looking at right now on your page. Just with more granularity, I guess.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I also don't know. I assume that's the reason we have these calls, is we can think about this.
Right.
But they aren't mutually exclusive either, right? I mean, for people who want detail, they could look. The example here is enterprise funds. The year over year on the page you're looking at down 2%. But that masks some pretty good year by year volatility that was shown in the prior chart. And so they aren't mutually exclusive. We could do both. I mean, this doesn't have to be a data dump, but we could certainly do both.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this table and I say, you look at the enterprise funds and you have a $2.9 million decrease in, in the comparison, right? From 25 to 29 and 26 to 30.
Yep.
But that doesn't tell me, well, what got approved
right
from the 25 to 29 that resulted perhaps in that reduction? Because maybe the projects, there was a big year for projects being approved, and then maybe there weren't many new projects added in the period of 26 to 30, for example.
Yep.
So it kind of that, like, this table doesn't really provide the reader perhaps that granularity that you talked about as to what's going on with the enterprise funds on a project by project basis.
Yeah, which gets back to your comment about, if we're going to do it in the prior table, we need to make a comment on it. We can't just dump numbers on there and expect people to intuit what's happening. So can we just have this as let's think about this? But it's a good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of. All right.
So, certainly, I'd like to spend more thought time on this, because it is an interesting chart. Now that I'm trying to read as quickly as I can through these 2 paragraphs, but I think we need to spend a little more time on this.
Yep.
To make sure that we understand it's here for a reason. I just don't understand the history.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I could be misremembering because I'm not getting any younger, but a lot of this was basically to point out the impact the CWMP was having on the plans. But now that CWMP is a separate section, and has an impact probably on the other two line items, you know, what's available for enterprise funds. I still think it would be worthwhile, but as you suggest, Jim, let's just think about this and chat about it in public forum.
Then concluding comments, we've made no changes yet there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we have not made any.
I know my time was focused on putting content together, so I did not spend.
Yeah, the only general comment I'd have on our concluding comments is they were never particularly wowy, and I'm not sure we need to be wowy just for the sake of being wowy, but it'd be interesting to rethink these two once we get the content done.
Yeah. And again, part of the discussion we had 2 weeks ago was the intent was to document in the report findings, the information that we want to contain in the report. However, if you were to use your word, a wow factor, but then during the presentation, call out those separate when we present to town council. To call out in a more meaningful fashion.
Yep.
The highlights of the report.
Yep. So if we're, so we're going through this version. That's good because that's what I have on my screen. Jim, I'm happy to go through these or not.
Okay.
The punchline is that using the same format we have now, which is distinguishing enterprise fund submissions from general fund submissions, to me, this is the verbiage that would go back up in the respective sections about DPW. And I assume we'd have similar comments for schools and then the separate section for CWMP. So I just kind of took these straight away from the two documents that Mark sent around or Gareth sent around, plus the notes that I took from the meeting with the department at the regular CFAC meeting.
Okay.
So there's nothing here that's new. It's just kind of taking data from other sources and trying to narrow down, you know, literally 110, whatever the heck it was, submissions to a final number. I did overstep a little here because I included some things on things like schools, just because I was on a roll doing this stuff. So you can ignore that, do anything you want with it. But yeah, these would just be bullet points to insert up in the once we get down to editing.
From our last school submission, were they going to do something different for the roofs? Didn't they pull the 13 million out?
Yes, they pushed it to fiscal year 27.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, because they plan on bringing forward a application to the Mass School Building Authority for that project.
Then we should definitely get rid of my overstepping on that. And I will leave that to you, Jim, or Jeremy, I guess.
Easy.
Okay. So that's, yeah. And then there's the, you know, Jim, I'll defer to you or Mark or Betty. In the past, I think the final paragraph, where it says as suggested, you know, the reports have tended to want to have some kind of concluding statement. I'm not sure the way we're going to format this. This needs to be in the second. We can make a more general rolled up comment, but I threw it in there just in case however we end up formatting this, we wanted to.
Okay.
So Lillian, I think especially was predisposed to, offer our view on the process and the thoroughness of the project vetting process.
Right. And I agree. I mean, we talked about this last year. I just have been, personally, this is my second year sitting back in on this CIP task force meeting. They have such a command of the project that they're working on. It's incredible, truly. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, I have to say, I'm both the schools and the DPW. It's just refreshing when you ask a question, you get an answer. You might not always like the answer, and they sometimes don't like the answer, but it's rarely ambiguous, and that's huge. So I'm with you 100% on that. And I read your section, and similarly, if I think of these as the things that will plug in up, in the appropriate in the CWMP section, I think this is great. It's just a matter of editing and looking at it, seeing how it flows, seeing how many pages we are. I know we've in the past wanted to keep this relatively succinct. I think the nature of the expenditures and the impact of the CWMP, I think we don't want to get too succinct. There should be some value here, not just regurgitating numbers.
Right.
But I like what you wrote.
So here's kind of what I'm thinking recommendation-wise. I think the work that was done on the CWMP plan and then Mark's efforts that we reviewed Hector presented last 2 weeks ago. I just think that those are important tools and documents to continue, and that we just need to continue that formality. I think it was, Mark, I'm guessing it was, well, I said 2021 was the last time I remembered we did it, and we did it now in 25. Maybe we may even want to be a little more aggressive in language and say it's done biannually. I'm not sure if maybe are the plans to do something that detailed we did this year annually now with the tools that you have available? Mark? Oh.
Sorry, Jim.
That's all right.
Sorry, what's the specific
So
question?
the question was, is that we did, this year we did an extensive review, DPW did an extensive review of the CWMP. You developed a financial tool that also aids in determining where we are financially and being able to fund projects. And my recommendation was to continue a formal update and not go 4 years like as we did last time from 2021 to 2025. Is that something that's already in the works? And I'm just obvious.
Well, first of all, 2 things. DPW is currently updating the CWMP plan. They are in our approved plan. They are committed to doing a comprehensive update once every 5 years. So they're in the middle of doing that, and that's part of our approved CWMP. And then secondly, the funding model obviously has to be looked at on a regular basis. We're committed to that annually, on updating that based on new project submissions, any changes in the assumptions that may impact it, including borrowing rates, funding or financing opportunities through the state revolving loan fund, et cetera. We have to look at those assumptions. There are so many assumptions built into that model that we have to look at on a regular basis and adjust them because things change. Things change monthly for us.
Is 5 years the right time frame, Mark? Is it something? Yeah. Okay.
I think, as we've talked about before, conversations with this committee, anytime you start going beyond 5 years, the data just becomes more and more unreliable. Even 5 years is hard to nail down accurate assumptions and costs and things. So I think 5 years is, we even changed on our, our annual 10-year forecast to an annual 5-year forecast for that reason. That was in our charter,
Okay.
changed a few years ago. So I think, that's probably the best, a good time frame, because you want to be able to measure, at least over more than a 2-year period, what you should be planning for, or attempting to plan for.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I put for public, we had this a while ago, just the communication plans. I think we've got in place now a very aggressive communication plan. It seems like every month we're at some DPW's at some location, providing some presentation on the CWMP. And I just didn't know if we want to accelerate that even more. I mean, just to begin the discussion on debt exclusion. So I put that in my comments. I guess my point being, do we want to accelerate the usage of the word debt exclusion in conversations? And that's something I'd like the subcommittee to think about as we go forward and as we present.
Yeah, and it's a good suggestion, Jim. And also, the next update on the funding model may require us to accelerate that discussion as well.
Okay.
I mean, the big change that we had previous year allowed us to, just decelerate that discussion.
Decelerate, right? Exactly.
Because there was a major change in the way the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund was providing, the 25% subsidy, which was a big financial benefit to Cape communities. But yeah, with all the other things that are going on right now, we could end up resulting in accelerating that conversation again.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea to keep that at the forefront. I think it really helps people to understand it and perhaps not be as frightened of it. I mean,
Right.
you have a better understanding of something, and especially when you're supporting with the kind of numbers you're supporting with, if you tie it together, I mean, the numbers are startling. It really is. And so it has to always be put there. And I think it's a really good idea to always keep that in the discussion. So I thought,
and I agree. And Jim, maybe the committee wants to think about adding some verbiage around how a debt exclusion works. Because I think educating the community about, how those work would be beneficial, especially if that conversation is going to be accelerated. There's a lot of good information behind that available on the Division of Local Services website, but I can certainly direct you to all of that information. There's informational guideline releases that go over the details involved in, the timing of a debt exclusion, creating the ballot question, the financial impacts of how it works, et cetera.
Okay.
yeah, and Hector had covered in his presentation that we don't in the town have a great history on passing debt exclusions. So whether the subject was not good or the presentation, the education, so it all reinforces, I think, your sense you're exactly on the right track here. So I'd continue with it.
And there's already Betty, there's already a built-in mechanism for this. DPW does, as I said earlier, does a great job at making these presentations, and typically they draw the line at any financial discussions, right? So they're talking projects and not concerning themselves with the audience and financial matters or debt exclusion. And maybe it's something worth talking to them if there should be a component in these meetings for that as they continue their sessions. So just
No, it's an interesting perspective. I mean, their hiring of Kelly Callipy was genius. I mean, they took her from
she's
Cape Air.
incredible.
She was at Cape Air, and they plucked her from there. And And she's been absolutely, I mean, she just works a million miles a minute. She's incredible in what she brings, her energy. So yeah, but it would be an entirely different thing because they've been very much on just the mechanics, the engineering, that kind of thing. So this would be a totally new area. So it needs to be, I'd love to hear your comments on it, on how we do that without muddying the waters. It needs
Yeah.
to be done because then there's also some legal considerations on, kind of lobbying, and, it has to be done extremely carefully. So
Right.
I'd really like you guys to delve into it.
So that pretty much covers, the work that we've got so far. I know I saw Jeremy's slide. If somebody I can unshare my screen and try to find it and open that up. Or let me do that because I'm going to stop sharing. Hold on just 1 second. Oops. It's just going to take a minute to come up.
How long did you lose power for, Jim?
It was just, it happened twice within 5 minutes, and then I was fine. So it was just very quick, maybe 5 seconds. And so they might have been doing some testing,
Yeah.
something of that nature.
But with this wind and this cold, I'm surprised there's not more going on.
Okay, so let me go back here again, and I will ask. Okay, so this is my first run through here. So this is Chris. So Chris has schools and enterprise. I mean, Chris, I'm sorry. Jeremy Shea has schools and enterprise. So this is his review. It looks like he grabbed these numbers from, well, that's good, from your report, Mark, it looks like, or it's fairly current, 26.
Yeah, it looks like he may have grabbed the numbers right off of the CIP submission schedule that we sent out to the subcommittee.
Okay.
That looks like something that was taken out of the school capital, the study that they had done. Right. Again, that looks like something out of the school study.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I think I think this looks awesome. It's probably too much detail on some pages,
Yeah.
but the punchlines, and I like the way he has. I mean, you'll get to it, but I like the way he's put together a number of kind of so what statements, which I think are good for a report like this. I think it's just a matter of converting this to conversational word format. But content-wise, I think it's awesome.
Okay. Excuse me, this is just the first time I've gone through it, so.
like this is not, this page is, I don't think is necessary. We will have made that comment somewhere else.
Okay, so this just needs to be put in the proper format, and let me go back to the schools again here, please. Was it 91 projects for 60? That seems low to me, 66 million. 91.
Yeah, I think that's what they had, their 5-year submissions, but it was a lot more than that in the study that was done, which covered a longer period of time.
Okay, that's right, because they had 1, 2, and 3.
Yep. Yep.
So these are their current CIP. This is a school's rankings.
Those are the rankings, I believe, that came out of the study that they had done. It's not the rankings of the CIP task force.
Okay.
But it looks like those 20 projects are the ones that they originally submitted for requests for funding in FY26, which
Okay.
has slightly changed. They went back
Right.
and after meeting with the superintendent and director of facilities, we gave them some thresholds or some targets to shoot for and asked them to reprioritize their project submissions for 26 based on what those target numbers were. And they did so. So that schedule that I sent out to you yesterday, I think looks a little bit different than this.
Okay. All right. Well, I will, I can communicate with Jeremy to let him know that we quickly reviewed this. And, we'll try to get it in the proper format, and then we all have to work on our numbers anyway. So that's,
Yeah. Yeah. And I would suggest that you not try to maybe repeat information that's going to be in the CIP document itself.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like numbers and rankings, because you can maybe just reference that stuff in the CIP document as opposed to repeating it. But
Okay.
that's just a suggestion. You can certainly do
Okay. Gotcha.
however you want to do
I
it.
appreciate that. I agree. Okay. So let's see. We're here the 18th. We've got next week. And then the following week is the formal submission for Mark to town council. And then we have one more session. So we have 2 more meetings between now and our submission to our preliminary submission to CFAC. So we've got a couple weeks to put this together. And I think we've made a good start. So why don't we just keep moving along, and I'll get working back, with your report, Mark. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to plug those numbers in, but we will.
And Jim, will you ask Jeremy to do the conversion from PowerPoint to Word?
I will.
Thank you.
I will.
Awesome.
Does this meeting, Mark, does this get posted as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do.
So Jeremy can look at that. I mean, he can go review that as well, right? To stay current with us.
Yep. Minutes will be produced, as well as the video will be posted to the town's website. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Speaking of minutes, Jim, that was there was an item on tonight's agenda to approve the January 28th subcommittee meeting minutes. We certainly, if you haven't had a chance to review those, we can just put them on the next agenda.
I feel more comfortable if we did that. I did not review.
Okay.
You all right with that, Chuck?
Sure. Yep. Whatever you'd like to do. Yep.
Okay. Anything else for tonight? Think we're good?
Yeah, good by me.
So you want to ask, I guess I'll have to call for close the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you.
So moved.
All right. Second, and call the roll.
I will. Jim, are you okay if we stop?
Yes, I am.
All righty, me too. It's unanimous.